Hi, I'm Jeff Dunn. Welcome to the Santa Cruz Yacht Harbor, where we have here today Carolyn Swift of the Capitola Museum and Angelo Canepa on his boat, the Ocean Pearl. Angelo is a second-generation Santa Cruzan. His family came to Santa Cruz from Riva Tregoso, Italy. Angelo, great being on your boat.
Thank you.
Good to see you.
Thank you.
We were talking a little bit about your grandparents, or your parents today. Talk a little bit about how they immigrated to the United States, where they arrived and where they first came.
They came through Ellis Island and from Riva, and they ended up in San Francisco in 1903. And he bought a place there to live, and he bought a fishing boat, which was going to be his trade. And the earthquake destroyed the home they lived in, and so then he had a baby. He had my oldest brother there, which was it was a very small boy, or a baby, I guess, at that time. Mm-hmm. And he put his wife and the baby on the boat, and came down the coast, ended up in Capitola.
Now, there were a lot of Rivanis, or people from Riva Tregoso in San Francisco at that time. Did he have family up there?
We got a lot of relatives. We had a lot of relatives in San Francisco. I guess we still have, but you get away from them all, you know. But
can't get away from all of them.
No, that's right.
We try.
Yeah, no, but North Beach at that time was, I guess, mostly Italians when we used to go up there. They're
sure
all Italians. Yeah.
Now, what's always been interesting to me is that one of my great-grandfathers fished out of Santa Cruz, and the other great-grandfather fished out of Capitola. Capitola had a smaller little fishing community with members from Riva Tregoso there.
That's right. We had my brothers, as they grew up, they became fishermen, and we had as many as, my dad had a fish market there.
Right.
And he also had, my brothers were fishing out of there. It was very good fishing, commercial-wise, out of there.
Safer harbor there, too.
Safer harbor. It wasn't a harbor, it was a wharf. But,
right.
But all the anchorages were out there. But they used to hoist them up in the wharf in the wintertime.
Right, on the davits.
On the davits. And we had as many as, 4 boats, commercial, 4. My brothers fished commercial. We had 4 commercial boats there.
What's a davit?
Yeah, we'll talk.
A davit it hooks up the fishing boats on each end and lifts them up on the wharf.
There were hand cranes.
Yeah.
There were hand cranes situated on the east side of the wharf there, and they used to lift the boats out of the water.
Lift them up out of the water, yeah.
What other old Italians do you remember fishing out of Capitola at the time?
Oh, gosh. There was Brigani's.
Right.
There was, come on, you got me.
I have a favorite photo. One of my favorite photos was taken off the Capitola Pier. It's of Buck and Ludge.
That's my brother.
With the great picture catch. Do you know the photo I'm talking about? The boat's filled with fish.
Yeah, that's the way it used to be in those days. They used to fill the deck full.
So Buck and Ludge are your 2 older brothers?
Yeah, there was Gus was my oldest one, and then there was Buck, and then there was Ludge. And the Gus, he was the oldest one. He fished longer than any of them, I guess, because Buck, he fished for years, and then he got involved with in San Francisco and got to be head of a train streetcar, I guess, streetcar transportation at that time. And Ludge fished for years, too. Ludge retired from fishing.
Did you grow up fishing with them on the boat?
I worked mostly. I used to get so seasick that I hated, and Dad put me in the fish market. I used to work in the fish market, cutting fish.
You were like my Uncle Mario. He got seasick, so he didn't fish. He stayed in the market.
Yeah, I used to clean fish in the morning before we used to walk 1 mile to grammar school at SoCal.
Yeah.
And we had to walk home because in those days they didn't have any buses. And I used to clean fish in the morning, and walk to school. And then when I come home, I couldn't play sports or anything because my dad used to make me clean fish in the afternoon.
See, all the good-looking guys were the ones who worked in the fish markets. They didn't want to be out at sea. They wanted to be back in the market where the action was happening.
I don't know, but we used to get ribbed all the time at grammar school because the kids, when I'd walk in class, oh, I smell fish. That's what they used to rib me. So, and I was a little guy, and I still am, but I was smaller then.
Yeah, but how many of those guys did you drop, Angelo?
I was a fighter.
Yeah, I know you were, Angelo. So was it tough growing up in Capitola, being an Italian kid? Did you take some ribbing?
Well, no, it was, no, really, it was, we become part of it. I was on the volunteer fire department. I worked in a newsstand in the afternoons, and in the evenings I'd work for a fellow by the name of Clark. It was a newsstand, and I learned how to put in telephone calls for customers. And I delivered papers in the morning, and I delivered papers in the afternoon. And I got to know, you got to know everybody in town. It was very nice.
Where did you live in Capitola?
We lived on the west side of the wharf, on top of the hill there. We had the home for years.
On Prospect?
Prospect and Fourth.
What did you call that neighborhood up there?
Oh boy.
It was Fairview.
What did they call that? We used to call it the Al Lent Hill all the time, because Al Lent used to live right on the corner.
Because Al Lent lived up there, so I called it the Al Lent Hill.
Yeah,
Sure, why
that's
not?
right. That's what we used to call it. But we lived 4 blocks down from Al Lent on the corner.
Sure.
Yeah.
So you had a view overlooking the bay.
All of Monterey Bay. Yeah, it was beautiful. The water.
Where were you when were you in Capitola? Was your family in Capitola when you were born?
I was born in Capitola.
You were born in Capitola?
I was born in Capitola and lived there.
What year were you born?
Oh, 1917.
1917.
Yeah, no, those were the good old days.
Yeah, you and my Uncle Stagger were exactly the same age.
Yeah.
And Victor, you were the same generation as Stagger, Stegno, John Cardinale, Victor Guillo, and Andy Caviglia, sort of that same generation.
That's right.
And so you were all of age when World War II came along, too. We'll get to that a little later.
Yeah.
But a little more about Capitola. Were the Italians fishing with other fishermen at the time, or were they kind of separate?
No, they was all fishing together. No, it was very, Italians, I don't ever remember being separated from the rest of the Capitolians. They were very close to the Canepas. I mean,
Sure.
My dad built that big building there, you know, on the corner of the 2-story. It's still there.
It's
Yeah.
it's part of the
Mercantile, sure. And that's where your old fish market was,
That's
right
where
there.
the fish market was. We had 4 apartments upstairs. We used to live partly upstairs sometimes.
Uh-huh.
Oh, you actually lived there sometimes? There
Upstairs
was
sometimes,
apartments?
yeah. Once in a while we'd live there. And when they would be doing work in the house, of course my dad had a big wine cellar. And he made his own wine, you know.
Of course.
In those days.
No, because people from Riva are known to drink a little red wine once in a
That's
while,
right.
just a little bit.
Just
Yeah.
a little.
And did you guys used to process anchovies and sardines, salt them, and do
Salt
that
them,
too?
yeah. My dad and I was just trying to think of the markets back in New York. Folsom markets?
Uh-huh.
Is such a thing as Folsom market?
That sounds right.
Yeah, well, my dad used to ship salted down fish on train clear to New York, the Folsom markets.
Well, I have a question for you. Carolyn probably knows the answer to this, but I don't. Where did you used to load your fish on the train in Capitola? Did you do it up at the depot?
At the depot.
Okay.
Yeah, the old depot, the old Southern Pacific depot.
So you used to take them up there by truck?
By truck, or truck. We had an old truck we used to, yeah.
What kind of fish?
Oh, boy. I don't remember what it was that they used to
Well,
sell
I've
down.
seen pictures of definitely of sardines,
Sardines.
pompano,
Yeah.
some salmon.
We used to get a lot of pompano.
Yeah, salmon.
Salmon and sea bass, a lot
A lot
of
of
sea bass. A lot of halibut at that time.
Yeah, more of the shallow water fish in there.
That's right.
Flounder.
Yeah, a lot of
kingfish.
We used to sell a lot of kingfish to the Chinese in San Francisco.
Right.
They used to really go for kingfish. We used to net those.
Mackerel.
Yeah, mackerel.
Those used to come in.
Yeah, you know.
Now, did you ever deep water fish for black cod and some of the other rock cod out of there?
My brothers did. I fished with them with trawls up the coast.
Yes.
We'd go up the coast. We'd go and fish in real deep water.
Did you compete with the Santa Cruz fishermen or fish alongside them?
At that time we did.
Yeah.
And then finally, Capitola, we finally moved in there. The boats finally moved in there. My brothers moved into Santa Cruz.
So they moved over the Santa Cruz wharf.
Finally, yes.
Why was that?
Well, the wharf we had a couple of storms and did a lot of damage to the wharf, and there was no repairs to it, I remember the seas coming clear over the top of the wharf.
Capitola is susceptible to southwest storms.
Oh, real bad.
And those swells come in.
And they go clear over the top of the wharf.
Yeah.
Well, they lost the middle of the wharf in 1914.
That's right.
Right.
That's right.
Now, is that when Geoffrey was out there? He was one of the other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was stuck on the end.
Knocked the wharf out. Yeah.
Yeah. George Mitchell, I guess, was the one that was operating the wharf.
So Mitchell ran the wharf for how long? 30, 40 years?
He was there in the 1890s.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Until when?
Oh, God.
He died in 1950, I think.
Yeah.
And that's when he stopped running it. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, he stopped in the 40s.
That's right.
My dad wanted to buy that wharf, and we wanted to, repair it.
Sure.
Make a better wharf out of it, but at that time you couldn't do anything.
How much was it?
Wharf? I don't remember the price. Yeah, I don't
How
remember.
about prices of fish, too? Can we talk about
Oh, boy.
Oh, did you crab ever?
Oh, yeah. We used to
shoot
crab off from Moss Landing. We used to get, how much we used to get for crabs?
Penny or 2 cents a pound,
We
something
used to
like
get
that?
$3 a dozen or something like that.
Okay, yeah.
$3 a what?
$3 a dozen. That was a good day.
And in those days, they fished with gill nets. And I remember as a kid, we used to get ice picks from the ice company and bend over the end. And we used to sit there and we'd pull up the crab nets, They're all gill nets. And they're all tangled up in there. And you sit on deck and untangle them. And your fingers with easterly wind would get so cold from easterly wind, you never knew that one had it until your finger thawed out.
Till you looked down and it was black and blue, the tips from those.
Oh, yeah, but I think that's what, fishing black cod up from Santa Cruz with my brothers and rock cod, long distance, that's what got me out of the fishing business. I gave up. I used to
Shrug it out there.
I used to get so sick that I couldn't believe it. So I finally got out of it and started working in gas stations and stuff like that.
Did you learn to mend the nets?
Oh, yeah.
So talk a little bit about that. I'm assuming all your family would be around mending the nets.
Oh, yeah. That was a mend them. We used to mend our own nets. We had an area down the wharf where we used to stretch them out and dry them.
At the base of the wharf?
At the base of the wharf.
Right.
They used to dry them there, and then we had a place at home where we used to do it also. And then we had a tannery at home, a great big deal. We used to buy tannery stuff from Salt's Tannery.
Sure.
At those years. We used to buy it by the sack. I remember about going over and buying. And we used to put it in the hot water, and then we used to dye all our nets to protect them.
You'd have a big kettle, and then a big hoist above it, and drop them in there, and you tan the net.
It was more than a kettle. It was a great big, like a long trough. It was like the size of a little rowboat, 10, 12 feet long.
And you'd heat the water up in there?
Yeah, we'd shove wood and stuff, trees underneath it, coal, not coal.
That protected them?
That protected them from rotting.
From the saltwater rot.
Yeah, it was all twine, It was a string, and it would all protect them from rotting is what it would do.
Oh, that's interesting.
So really, all of the little fishing families had these big canning operations, and it would protect the cotton twine from rotting in the salt water.
Yeah.
And it would probably make them last 3 or 4 years longer than had they not done.
We used to make our own. We used to buy the corks. Yeah, and we used to make our own lines to put the corks on, and then we used to make our own lead. We used to get lead and make our own lead sinkers all along the bottom of the net too.
What he's talking about is the floats were used to float the top of the net. They were a Lampara type of net, and then also gill nets have weights at the bottom that they drop the bottom part of the net.
It goes right down to the bottom, and then that when it sits on the bottom, there's corks on top. They don't come to the surface, but your net is like this on the bottom with corks, and then the net floats like this, but not to the surface. Then you have buoys that you locate your nets with.
You also grew up as a kid during an era when there was some running going on in Capitola.
Oh yeah, those were the dream days. We used to get, Coast Guard used to pay us $5 because the rum runners used to come in there all the time and unload when they first got the cement ship, we called it China Beach at that time.
Right.
They used to sneak in there and unload, and once in a while the Coast Guard would come in there, and the rum runners would take off, and the stern of their boat would just open up like this, and all their booze, all their cases would all float out and sink, and then they had a little buoy that they'd put on there. And as kids, we'd go out there with rowboats, and we'd look for these little buoys, and we'd find them, and we couldn't pull them up. We tried, but we couldn't pull them up. So then we'd notify the Coast Guard or somebody like that, and they give us $5.
Did the Coast Guard pay a
The Coast Guard wouldn't, but somebody wouldn't pay us $5 either.
Some of your uncles would probably paid more for it.
In fact, I had uncles that used to do it out of San Francisco.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What time period is this?
Talking
boy.
20s, 30s.
Oh,
The late 20s.
Yeah.
oh, the early 20s, really.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah,
Yeah.
early 20s. Yeah.
Until the early
Right.
30s. I mean, that's
That's right.
1932 is
Yeah.
when Roosevelt's elected, and he ends Prohibition in 33.
That's
Well,
right.
was it New Brighton was a favorite drop spot?
We used to call it China Beach.
China Beach.
Right.
Yeah, and they had little shacks down there that they lived, and they used to land there on the beach because it was kind of a smooth area to come in on. And then when they towed in the cement ship and anchored it there, well, then they'd tie up at the cement ship and unload there. They used to have a dance hall on the cement ship and all of that.
And so did they do a lot of drinking on the...
Oh, I guess they did, yeah.
I've heard stories.
Yeah, oh yeah, it was pretty wild at one time. Yeah.
So you went to grammar school through 8th grade, I presume, at SoCal
Right.
Elementary. My alma mater too, by the way.
And then I went to high school.
Where'd you go to high school?
Santa Cruz High School. I went to Mission Hill for 1 year,
Okay.
and then I went to high school, and I had then my dad passed away when he was 52, and my mother passed away when she was 58. I was an orphan when I was 16.
So you were in high school then. So what class were you in?
When I quit school, I was a junior. I just graduated as a junior.
And were you in the class of 35 you would have been in?
35.
So you were in with Smalley, with Stago,
I was
and
in with
John Carnegie and all those guys.
That's right, yeah.
Okay.
And I had to quit school to go to work at that time.
Your family, you kept the fish market, though, for a number of years.
Well, yeah, we finally gave it up, the fish market.
What year was that?
Oh, boy.
Was
it before the war or after the war?
It was before the war. Well, let's see now. It was before the war.
That's what I thought. And what interested me about your life is you were one of the guys who got away from fishing and got away from the wharf, and you went in. So where'd you work after high school?
Well, I worked in gas stations for a while.
Where were they? Was there one in Capitola you worked in?
No. There was one in Santa Cruz. I was just trying to think. It was the Shell station.
The one down by Pacific Avenue? And Front Street?
It was out on the,
Yeah, where Pacific and Front meet.
Yeah, I was working there. I worked in different places. And then, let's see, what year did I get involved with my brother-in-law, Al Fanucci? He was in partners with his brother, you know.
The Fanucci brothers?
Yeah, and he got killed lifting Skip got killed lifting up a car off of Lighthouse Point.
Right.
And then I went to work for them, washing cars, and
Where was
Yeah.
that located?
that was on Front Street.
Okay. And they had a car dealership there.
Jack Marks was there with a car dealership. Al Finucci had the shop. He was
Right.
and Jack Marks was just selling cars.
So that's when you first started getting involved in the auto business.
I got involved in that.
And then World War II comes along.
Yeah, and then I was the first draftee there.
Really? From Santa Cruz?
From Santa Cruz.
You're the first draftee?
Yeah, and I
What
didn't
a distinction.
and I didn't have any education, and they put me in the Presidio of Monterey in the infantry. And the second day I was there, I was still in civilian clothes. I was in the tent sleeping, and they were calling roll call out there. Of course, I didn't know what roll call meant or anything. And the guy was outside trying to pronounce my name. Canepa, and I stuck my head out of the tent. I can't say what I told him. There's a lady here. But, and so then I cleaned all it. He was a second lieutenant.
Uh-huh.
So then he put me there cleaning all the heads, and there was 158 heads in the Presidio Monterey.
And they were all
And
clean when you were done with them?
I was cleaning them all, and then at night they had me cleaning pots and pans in the kitchen. And then finally, we had a friend that was an Italian. He was a full colonel at Muffet Field.
Uh-huh.
Oh, Colonel Canella. And he was a friend of the family, and I called him and told him what my trouble was. And he said, that's about right. He says, keep your mouth shut. And he says, I'll get you out of there, but don't say a word to anybody. So he got me out of there and got me in the Air Force at McClellan Field in Sacramento.
So that's how you got into the Air Force.
That's where I got.
You were originally drafted into the Army
That's
and
right.
shifted to the Air Force because when I grew up, I was born in 1955, I knew you had been
Yeah.
a famous pilot during World War II. So how did that you started training at Moffett Field?
I started training at McClellan
Oh,
Field,
McClellan, rather, yeah.
and then I became I was more interested in rank, because then you couldn't get any rank, you know. I was an enlisted man, no high school diploma, no college education. To be an officer, you had to have 2 years of college. And I couldn't become an officer, so I worked up the ranks. My commanding officer wanted to make me a corporal. I'll never forget. I said, no, I don't want to make a corporal. I said, I got to be more than that. Give me some more stripes than that. So he says, okay, I'll make you a buck sergeant. And I went up the ranks there. And then we were supposed to fly. I became an aerial engineer at that time on B-17, and the Japanese bombed Hawaiian Islands.
December 7th.
December
1941.
7th. I was supposed to leave there. There were 6 17s. We were supposed to leave there, McClellan Field, to go to Hawaiian Islands on December the 8th.
Wow.
And I was at home, and they called me up and said, you don't have to report because we cancel out the flight. So I went back to the field, and they got me and my crew, and they put us on the train and shipped us to New York on a train. And on the train, then they assigned me to the Royal Canadian Air Force.
So you actually became part of the Royal Canadian Air Force?
Well, we were assigned to them.
I see.
And then they put us on a ship and shipped us to England. And I flew over there for a while, and then we had a tough time over there. And General LeMay, he was out of Los Angeles. They sent me back to Prestwick, Scotland, to come back to home. They were going to ship me by ship, they were going to fly me back home for more training. And because I qualified in the States for pilot training, bombardier training, and navigation training.
Uh-huh.
And then when I got back, then General LeMay, when I got to Prestwick, Scotland, I talked to him. I said, let's not go by plane. Let's get on a ship. Let's get on a tramp steamer. It'll have to take a week or two to get home, and that way we'll enjoy it more. I don't want to get home that fast. And so we didn't. We did. We got on a 4-stacker troop ship, and they took us back to New York. And then I went through. Then I chose bombardiering, Roswell, New Mexico. I went through there, and then I went through a navigation school. In Louisiana.
What type of planes were you flying?
I was in the Pacific. It was B-29s. It was a new ship, and it was B-29s. I led the first missions from Tinian, an island of Tinian near Guam, and we're the first B-29s. And I was deputy lead on the first mission, and the boy from New York who went through school with me, he was shot down, and his whole crew was killed. And I gave his services there on the island because he was Catholic, and it was also new. There was no Catholic, programs or anything. So I made arrangements for that. And then I became the lead ship there. And General LeMay, he flew the first 2-3 missions with me.
General Curtis LeMay you're talking about.
And he was wonderful. He was the nicest commanding officer you could ever expect. And then after 11 missions, he says, Angelo, you got to get out of here. You've been lucky so far. We lost a lot of boys.
How many missions did you fly in the Pacific?
11.
11. And how many did you fly in Europe?
We didn't go by missions there. We went by sorties. So,
okay.
So I don't know what it was. We went by, I don't know how they figured it there.
There's a great book that I love. It's called The Service Cardinal. And in it has all the kids who served from Santa Cruz High in the Second World War.
Oh, did they? Yeah.
And I read your bio in there.
Oh.
And I was surprised that you had flown in both the European context and also in the Pacific.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And then LeMay wanted he said, Angelo, I'm going to send you to Australia for 2 weeks. You need it. I said, no, I don't want to go to Australia. Send me to the Wine Islands. And I said, okay, wherever you want to go, you can go. So I went to Wine Islands, and the first was for 5 days I was there. I was walking the streets in Piccadilly Square, and down the streets was 5 outranking officers. They outranked me at that time. And 2 of them were from England. I forgot what they call their ranks now, but they're high rank in the British Air Force. And they recognized me, and we got talking. I said, where are you headed for? He said, we're going to Washington, D.C. for a meeting. I said, oh, you got to have a seat on that plane for one more passenger, and you can drop me off at, what's the field near San Francisco, on the other side of San Francisco.
Is it up on the bay, the north side of the bay?
Alameda?
No, further out.
No, I know, it's north, up in,
Anyway, they landed there. He said, yeah, we can drop you off there. I said, oh, that'd be great. That way I'll go home. I went home from there.
And you stayed home?
I stayed home.
That's how you got out of that's how you got out of World War II.
Yeah, well, LeMay called me when I was home after 2 weeks. He says, Angelo, meet me at Biggsfield, Texas. He says, I got to talk to you. And I said, okay. So I flew the bill feet. He said, Angelo, you're an orphan. You got no place to go. He says, I want you to stay in the service. He says, you'll go to top on ranks. He says, when you're 42, you can retire as a brigadier general. And I said, no. I said, I've been shot at, and, well, I won't use the other word, so much that I said, I don't want no more to do with it. I added up to here. I said, no, I want to get in the automobile business. I want to get home and get in the automobile business.
You mentioned Curtis LeMay. This was in the early days of his career during World War II. He later became very famous. Talk about his career.
Well, when I first met him was, of course, I met him here when I was going through service, and the training, and then that's when I went over to the Pacific with him.
Right.
He led my bomb group in the Pacific, and
he led he was the orchestrator, conductor of the fire bombings of Tokyo at the end of the war.
That's right. He was the originator of that.
And then became famous with the Flying Tigers.
He was very good. Yeah, he was very good. Curtis LeMay, he flew the first missions in B-29 with me.
Okay.
And we bombed all the major cities.
Where were you bombing? Major cities of...
We bombed Tokyo, Yokohama, Nagoya, Kobe. I bombed Tokyo twice or three times. The Aichi on Nagoya River. The Nagoya River comes down,
Right.
and then goes into a single deal. And where the Y is, that was the Aichi plane manufacturers there. And they were making kamikaze planes there, and then cabling them across the river to an airport there. And they would give the kamikaze pilots their last rites there, and they not to return. They were to, suicide plane. And LeMay had me lead the first missions over the Aichi plane. He wanted it destroyed, and which we did. We destroyed it. So the what do you call them? The ones that investigated, they said we destroyed it 87% at that time. So, because kamikaze planes used to destroy an awful lot of our boys. We lost a lot of boys because of that. When you're shooting at each other, you got a chance, but when they're flying right into you, you lose everything.
Right.
And we had 11 people on board, a crew of 11 on the B-29, and you'd lose the whole staff. Some would parachute out, but the Japanese would get you down below, and before you even hit the ground, they'd shoot you, kill you. They didn't want you. So.
Could you describe a mission? I mean, what time would you get up? How long would it take to fly there? Just to...
Well,
what was your mission like?
Well, we used to have a full load of fuel and a full load of bombs, and
how many bombs would there be in a full load?
We'd have. It all depends on the weight of the bombs.
Right.
Some of our bombs weighed up to 1,000 pounds, and all depends. We had fire bombs or demolition bombs, and we had different types of demolition bombs. We had 1,000 to 2,000 pound bombs that we had. Some were, if you was bombing a city, that we call them penetration bombs, that go through a building before they'd explode, and go to the bottom and then explode.
Right.
And then we had fire bombs, which we firebombed Yokohama, Nagoya, not Nagoya, but Tokyo and Yokohama. They shot us up pretty bad there. But then our missions were from Tinian, were the average of 15 and a half to 17 hours long.
So you'd start in the morning or at night?
We'd start early in the morning, and we'd take off, and we'd come back at night. It was a long day. We were lucky. And if you got shut up pretty bad, we used to crash land once in a while at Iwo Jima, which was on the way. But a lot of them, they got shot up pretty bad. They ended up ditching, which when you ditch a bomber, you always lost 4 or 5 of the crew. And you always had some wounded on board. It was nothing to have 3 or 4 boys shot up in the plane all the time. So, but we were very fortunate in our plane. We watched it pretty close, and I was very careful with my men. I wanted when they originally started, like in Europe, we used 30 caliber guns, and I wanted high caliber guns, so we got 50 calibers on B-29, which gives you more distance in the bigger projectile.
Yeah.
And they were much better. So that it was the pilots, the kamikazes, I guess, destroyed more than fighters. Fighters, you always had a chance because you could fire back at them. But kamikaze, they'd come out of the sun and they'd fly right into you, and you didn't have a chance.
Do you remember some of the names of your crew members?
Oh boy, I should never forget them.
No, that's all right.
Yeah, they're all gone except the last one I just called a year ago. He was in Alpena Pass, Arkansas, and he passed away. But Wilson, he was gone. He was out of Sacramento. We had one named Brothers. He was out of not Michigan, someplace close to Michigan. He's gone. I guess I could be the only one that's living right now out of our crew. A lot of our boys are gone.
What year did you come back? Was it 44?
44. I was in a short time. I was only 4 years or something. I was in service. I was
Very intense, though.
Yeah, very intense. I was very active.
Well, there in Santa Cruz at the time, the Casa del Rey had been turned into a naval convalescent
That's right.
home for guys who had been shot up in the Pacific.
That's right.
And came here time my dad got to town, actually.
Yeah, that's right.
And so, did you ever have any interaction with any of the vets down there?
Well, some of them, but the most important was he was a doctor. He was there. And,
Dr. Allegrini?
no, Dr. Oh God. He was serving on an island in the Pacific at the time. He was a lieutenant commander at that time.
That's okay.
Yeah,
So he wound up coming and staying here?
He came. He stayed. He was there at the head of the recovery home, and then he became a local doctor in town.
Okay.
And him and his wife, they become very customers of ours. Because then, when I got involved with the automobile business, well, then I became a partner of Finucci, and then later on I bought him out.
So you bought Finucci out.
And then I built the store up on the east side.
Up on Water and Soquel.
Water there, and I still own it.
Right.
I leased it out to a fitness club.
It's now home of 24-hour fitness up there.
I still go to it.
And that was, I want to say, what was it, Pontiac? What
That was,
did you all have?
no, it was
Yeah.
no, it was Mercury, Lincoln Mercury,
Lincoln.
International trucks, and we had a foreign car there. We had a couple of foreign cars, and I had a used car across the street, and then I had a used car lot. I was great in used cars, and then trucks. I was heavy in the truck business too.
Now, just one question, and then I want to get back to some of the Capitola stuff. But seriously, this is not a joke. You grew up selling fish in a fish market. You learned some of your business acumen from your father and your older
That
brothers
time,
and family there.
yeah.
How much of that carried over into the automobile?
I guess it all did, really.
Okay.
I guess it all did, because I enjoy selling. I enjoy meeting people and selling things. And I think I learned that in the fish market from my dad, because he always had me out in front, because he couldn't speak much English. And you know how those Italians were in those
Sure.
days. And it was very good. I had a lovely mother. I had a lovely family, really, a big family. There's 9 children in our family.
Right.
3 girls and 6 boys. And we're all workers. We're all very competitive to each other.
How many stayed in Capitola?
They all stayed in Capitola, but Buck, he moved to San Francisco because he got in the streetcar business. He was very active in that. And then he moved into San Jose, Buck's Butane in San Jose. He had the largest commercial butane plant
Right.
in California, I guess. At that time he had 3 or 4 places. And then Ludge, he stayed in the commercial business, for fishing business. Idolo, he was 2 years older than I was. He went to when he was drafted, went into service. He went into the Marine School there.
Uh-huh.
What is it? Up above San Francisco or Oakland, up there. That
Don't know.
Marine College and he become top student there, and he become a captain in Merchant Marine and stuff like that. And then he had he went all over the world as a passenger liner. He was the skipper of that. Then he got disease in South America, and he passed away when he was 51. He died when he was 52, 53, something like that. He passed away very young. He was very active too, very good.
Well, the war had
And
a big impact on all the Italian fishing communities along the coast. 'Cause a lot of the kids who had grown up in the fishing community went into the service,
That's right.
saw the world, and when they came back, the fishery wasn't quite what it used to be.
No, and they were very good in service too. They were all very good in service. They were very active in service.
A lot of guys
Yeah.
did careers in them, in the
That's
service.
right. Yeah. Yeah, if I didn't have a place to go, I would have stayed in service. But I'm glad I don't regret it. But sometimes I go to these past, get-togethers, and then they always rib me about it. You should have stayed, Andrew. You was top. So I said, no, I'm kind of glad I got out.
Well, you had a good life here in Santa
I
Cruz.
can't complain. The people were good to me. The people, Santa Cruz has been wonderful to me because I didn't have any education. And, I was getting started, and then the flood hit me in 55, and that broke me again.
Because you were
And-
still on Front Street.
I was still on Front Street, and all my cars went underwater and everything, and I didn't have any insurance. And, of course, the government didn't help you out in those days, And so I had to start all over again.
And you had a young family then, too.
That was 55.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know your kids were born then.
Yeah, that's
What flood are you talking about?
We're talking about the flood of 55, of course.
yeah.
Flooded Front Street, and
Yeah.
What flooded?
Oh, the whole town flooded. Down Front Street there, the river, what happened there was a house, everything was coming down the river, and there was a house that got stuck up near the
Water Street Bridge.
Water Street Bridge, and turned the river, and it came right down Front Street.
Oh, that was
And you opened the doors on cars, and you'd see cars just go by, floating by you. Everything was floating by you.
Well, it came in at Chinatown,
That
and then came
Just-
right down Front Street.
and you
took
could,
out the bridge there.
yeah.
Right where community television is, Peter, was flooded. The garage he's talking about was right near the parking lot for community TV right now.
We had 2 cars in the showroom, and there was 11. I measured them. There was 11 inches of water over the front seats of the car. There you can imagine. And we just built a body shop across the street between the Central One Stop and the Greyhound Bus Depot. We bought that property, and we had just built a body shop there, and all the cars were underwater there.
Was it an exceptionally wet year, or was it because of the house, or what was that year like?
Oh, I don't remember the inches that they had, but it was a wet year, yeah. And then the current, the river wasn't cleaned out. It's like it is now, It's all the growth in it, and they all like trees in the middle of the river instead of having it nice and clear. It's real bad.
And there was
Yeah.
a very intense period of rain right before Christmas
Very, very much,
that
yeah.
year. And so what you had the ground inundated, the
Yeah.
water came in, and very intense rain over a 48-hour
Yeah,
period.
That's right, yeah.
You also mentioned Chinatown. There's no such place. I mean, what
No,
what is it?
Chinatown used to have all kinds of gambling there, and different things like that. It was a little community affair deal, and it was never bothered. It was people used to come down in the evening, and couples used to come there and go to Chinatown. There's a little prostitution going there too, a little of everything.
And where was that
It was
located?
It was located where the how can I explain it?
It's where the
You went-
movies 1 and 2 are. The riverfront theaters are located now. Long's
Longs in
right
there.
in there.
Yeah.
What's the new business down there?
Uh,
Trader Joe's.
Trader, yeah, all in there.
Did you know any of the families there?
No, I didn't know of any. No, I didn't know. You knew 'em because maybe some of them would be customers, but actually.
Some of the kids probably went to high school with you too.
Yeah, maybe so, yeah.
Although the oldest, George Lee, was a little bit younger than you. Remember
Yeah.
George, the photographer?
Yeah. And then there was there where on the corner across from the post office there was a bar there. There was some of the little boys there
You mentioned customers. Do you remember any of your customers' names, and would they buy a new car every year, or and what was the prices of cars? Do you remember?
Yeah, when you first started selling after World War II, what was the price of a car?
Oh gosh, what were they? You could buy. Oh gosh.
$600?
Yeah, $800, $1,200. You could get a good car. $1,400.
Were you still selling Model A's or T's even then?
No. They were gone. They were going on the wayside.
Well, they didn't make cars during the war, did they?
No. They made, I guess, maybe Army equipment is all. Yeah.
So the cars in 1946 were a lot like the ones in 1942.
46, 40, 45, 40, 40, 45, 46, 47, 48, along in there they were making them.
Started to make new cars.
Yeah, Ford was doing pretty good.
I have a question for you, because I don't know this answer. In Santa Cruz, the Italian immigrants who had not received citizenship, generally the first generation who had immigrated to Santa Cruz, many of them were forced to move west of Highway 1.
That's right.
Did that happen to your parents?
No. Well,
How about any of the Italians in Capitola?
No, not that I know of.
Okay.
Most of them were here in Santa Cruz.
Okay.
No, most of them were here in Santa Cruz.
And do you remember when that happened? Because you had some cousins and family where that happened.
It was, that I don't know.
You were already in the service.
Right.
I was already in service.
Okay.
So when you got out of the service, did you still fly a plane?
I flew. I bought an old plane. I went in partnered with a person, and then that didn't work out. Then the Capitola Airport Capitola had a little airport at that time.
Cliffwood Heights, is it? It's off Park Avenue.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, there's a little airport strip there. I bought an airplane there, and I used to fly out of there.
What kind of plane?
It was a little single-engine Piper Cub. The first one was a Piper Cub.
Russell and Esther Rice?
Russell Rice, he was managing the airport at the time. Him and his wife were managing the airport.
Esther would tell you how to come in and land.
Yeah, that's right.
How busy an airport was that back then? Were there a lot of planes there?
It was a nice little airport. I got the position financially where I wanted a hangar, and he said he gave me room to build a hangar. I built my own hangar there, and then I was flying quite a bit, different places, taking friends out. And then I wanted something faster, and I bought a surplus ambulance plane from the Air Force. They were having auction them off, and I took it and flew it home, and then I had to remodel it complete, and because I towed it into the garage. And we remodeled it in the body shop complete, recovered it and all, and made a little 4-passenger out of it. Then I had to get it inspected out of a place in Watsonville, because you have to have it thoroughly inspected, and they inspected it, and I had it for a while, and then
How long was that runway there?
Oh, it was, in feet I don't remember.
They took 200 feet off of it when they built the freeway. They built the highway. They lost 200 feet.
That's right.
So that came out probably where Kennedy Drive is.
Yes.
Right around in there.
Yeah.
And we're talking, it used to go probably right through Capitola Elementary and New Brighton Middle School, right in that area.
No, I think the main strip used to go over the cliff.
Oh.
Didn't it?
Yeah.
There was a cross strip there.
Yeah.
That's right. It used to go over the cliff. Yeah.
So did you remember Camp McQuaid?
Yeah, oh yeah.
What was that like?
Oh gosh.
I heard it was a good place to see movies in Capitola.
Yeah, Camp McQuaid. It was quite interesting. They used to come down. We used to do quite a bit of business with Camp McQuaid at that time.
Yeah.
And
they come in and buy fish at the fish market?
That's right. And we used to live them fish up there, really. Okay. And then they used to target practice out to sea, shoot guns out to sea.
Tucker, why don't you tell a little bit, Carolyn, what Camp McQuaid was?
Camp McQuaid was the 250th Coast Artillery. That was stationed there in the summertime for about 6 weeks. Is that
That's
right?
right. That's right.
They come every summer, and they would I don't know how many, but it would like triple the size of Capitola. There's a lot of people stationed there, and when they would fire the big guns, they got bigger and bigger, didn't they? And they would go around.
It was good.
They would open the windows in everybody's house so that they wouldn't break the windows.
It was good.
And they had boxing matches there. They had boxing matches.
That's right. They used to have a lot of activities there.
And films, they'd show movies, and local people really liked it.
Did you ever go up there for any of the social activies, or film, boxing?
We used to go over there for different things, yes. Nothing real glamorous, but we used to go up there just for more curiosity than anything else.
Now, a lot of the Italians who grew up here grew up as boxers. Did you box as a kid, too, at all?
No, I tried it, but I was too small. Yeah, no. Everybody was bigger than me. The only time I boxed is when I'd get in a fight. Then it become a fight.
Yeah, no, I heard you're pretty tough as a kid, Andrew.
Yeah, they used to make fun of me at school all the time. It smells like fish, and I don't care what size you wear, I'll fight you.
Good. Well, I want to ask you brought up something. I want to go back a little bit because it was interesting to me. The Italian spoken by the Genoese fishermen was a dialect.
That's right.
Genoese, Zenese, Ravani.
Yeah.
Did your mom primarily speak that at home when you were growing up?
She did, but we started to get away from it. Like now, I don't even know it.
No parli niente Italiano.
No, nothing.
Genoese.
No,
okay.
And I got away from it. And we all started to speak English at home,
But your first language was the dialect, right?
It was the dialect, yeah.
And all the kids there spoke that with the parents?
That's right, yeah. My mother, she maintained it longer than anybody else. My dad got away from it because he was out with the public all the time, But Mother wasn't. She was home.
Did she speak English at the end of her life?
Very little, but she could understand it, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and she was a wonderful woman. She was a wonderful woman.
Talk a little bit about them a little bit. What was your father's name, and tell me a little bit about him.
My father's name was Luigi, and he was very. Father was very good. He was very good. He was very strict. He brought us up right. We were very particular. I mean, we didn't touch alcohol or anything like that because that's something you didn't do. And you could have some wine, but you could have a little part of a glass of wine, and then they pour water in it.
Pour the water in it for the kids, yeah.
Pour water in it. That's the only time you got any. And he used to make his own wine, and he was very good. Mother was she was strictly.
What was your mom's name? And we'll talk a little bit about her.
Luigia.
Luigia and Luigi.
Yeah, Luigia and Luigi. She was just a beautiful woman and a wonderful woman. And
cook all the time, was it?
Yeah, she took care of 9 children, and they always had they never spanked you, but they always locked me in a room. I'd be in the room for 2-3 hours at a time when I was a bad boy. And my dad, I got a spanking at school once, grammar school.
For what?
Remember boy Frank Massimori, a Japanese boy?
Yes, I do.
Well, when I got involved with Boy Scouts, I became president of the Boy Scout district out of Salinas, out Monterey, and Watson. I became president. And I appointed him to sit on my board of directors, Frank Bass, because he went through grammar school with me.
Right.
And in 6th grade, the teachers were Mrs. Byers. She was a 4th grade teacher, and Miss Williams, Julia Williams. They used to live here on SoCal Avenue. Well, I walked in the class, and Frank Massimori had a seat right in the rear of the school, the first seat that you walk in the door. And he said, here comes fish. I smell it, and I hit him in the face while he was sitting down because he was bigger than I was. And I hit him away in the face. I guess blood come out of his nose. So then the teacher spanked me, and I went home and told my dad. My dad takes me down in the wine cellar, and he had this little white hose that he transferred wine, you know.
Right, that they used to siphon the wine from barrel to barrel.
Barrel to barrel,
Yeah.
and he folds that in half and grabs me by my arm, and man, I went out. I had stripes from the top of my knees to my shoulders.
You probably didn't do that anymore.
No, I didn't do that anymore. But they were wonderful people in those days, and they were very strict. I got to give my credit to my family, my folks, because they were wonderful people.
Now, how were you related to Edith Canepa?
Edith. Now, which one is Edith?
Edith, was that your dad's sister-in-law?
Edith. Oh, you're gonna have to.
No. Okay, and
There
then
was
your
another
cousins.
family.
What?
Yeah.
There was another family
You-
when they
what-
arrived.
Right, and that was part of the family.
That Donnie.
Yes.
He was my father's brother.
Right,
Donnie.
and his wife was.
What was her name? They had a big family. I think
Yeah.
11 children, I think.
Right, I think that was Edith.
Edith, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, that could have been that.
Yeah, so she would have been your aunt.
Yeah, yeah.
And you call him Lala?
Lala.
Lala and Borba,
And Borba.
the Italian dialect for uncle and aunt.
And for that.
Yeah.
Did your parents ever talk about their parents, and how did your parents meet? And did you ever go back and visit their hometown in Italy and tell us a little bit about it?
We did. My wife, when I retired, my wife and I, we went with another couple, Don Tetson and Claire Tetson. We cruised all around the world, really. My wife enjoyed cruising, but she don't like boating. We cruised. We went to Italy. We've been to Italy 2 or 3 times, and we went to Riva di Garda.
Right.
And of course, I couldn't speak the language, so I went to San Jose to a teacher's to Italian class to learn the language before I went over.
What's interesting is that the old Italian dialect that our family spoke there isn't spoken anymore.
And it's altogether different than what I was taught. And I got over there and I couldn't understand it. It was tough. And I met some relations, and the only reason they knew of me is that they knew they had a relation in California that was in the automobile business. That's where they.
And there are lots of Canepas in Riva Trigoso. The names all over the place.
All over the place.
Do you know
Gios,
what it means?
Stegneros,
Is
etc.
What?
What the name means?
Canepa? No, I don't.
No.
I looked it up. I forgot now.
Oh, no?
Yeah.
But it was interesting. It's
Huh?
just like a region named
What
that.
have I done? No, I've never.
It's a very common name
Yeah.
in the Provincia di Genoa.
Yeah.
You see it in all the little port towns along the coast, along with Stegnero, Gio, Carnia, etc.
So
But you don't see it all over Italy. You
No.
see it only particularly in that
one
region.
area.
Yeah.
I think it was a regional. I mean, there was a region.
But what was
That's-
fascinating to me, because I grew up speaking the same dialect, and like my grandmother didn't speak any English. I don't know if you remember my grandmother Battistino on the
But
wharf.
yeah.
She spoke no English.
Yeah.
And so the dialect I grew up was the old dialect. The only people who could speak to me in the dialect were in their 80s and 90s when I lived there in the 1980s.
That's right.
And all the young people laughed at me. That you're speaking the old dialect.
That's right.
Yeah,
Yeah, and there's so many dialects over there too.
right.
Like we're in Genoa, you couldn't understand anybody there,
Right.
and it was very. I was driving Ford Motor Car Company. I always had a car for me to drive over there, and we're driving from Monte Carlo to Riva and going through Genoa. We were looking for a restaurant. And we saw a boy standing on a corner, and I said, "There's a boy there. Maybe he'd understand." So I asked him. I said, "Try to speak in Italian." He started to laugh. He says, "I'm an American. I'm from New York." So I said, "Oh, great." I said, "We're looking for a good restaurant." He said, "Oh, yeah." He told us where it was, and I asked him. I said, "How about buying you lunch?" And he said, "Oh, I'd love to." He was a student and going to a medical school there to become a doctor.
In New York City?
No, in Italy,
Oh, okay.
near Genoa there.
Uh-huh.
And the reason they go there because it's half the price that it is here.
Sure. Oh, I got you.
And so then he says, I got a friend coming. Do you mind taking both of us to lunch? We'd enjoy a good lunch. I said, oh, great. And here comes a boy up. Nice looking boy. His family was from Mississippi. And so we took them both to lunch, and when I went to read the menu, the boy said, don't, he said, tell me what you want. And he read it out. He could speak the nicest Italian you've ever heard. It was beautiful.
So you understand the menu.
Yeah, they told me what to pick out. Yeah, it was good.
Your grandparents, did your parents ever talk about their parents and their names?
Your parents' in Italy. What was your mother's maiden name?
Toza.
Toza. Was she from Riva as well?
She was from Riva, and she had relatives in Toza's in San Francisco. Yeah.
Did they talk about their parents at all much over there, or no?
No, not too much. Not that I can remember, no.
One of the things I recall is, you have to remember, this whole community came from Italy over here.
Yeah.
And they severed. It wasn't like you could be flying back and forth or making phone calls or whatever. They pretty much broke the ties because they knew once they came, they weren't going back.
That's right.
And so it's very interesting for me. I know a lot about all my family that came. Great-grandparents, grandparents, aunts and uncles. But I know very little about those that stayed. And that's pretty common. The families that stayed there, that broke their ties. You have to remember, these were old communities. And traditionally, the kids would be there to support the parents and grandparents. They were gone. So there was a sense of resentment between the families that stayed and those that came here. And I guess when they first would go back, there would be tensions between the family that came here and those that didn't. Whereas now, I lived there for 9 months in the mid-'80s. We were very much welcome. I lived in Riva.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Right there, and you know, my cousins embraced me, and I worked with them and had a great time. But there were family members that came as late as the 40s and early 50s, and there was still resentment that they had left, and they would have fights about which was the better country, Italy or America.
Yeah.
And I would listen to these battles between them. And they were deeply fought battles over loyalty to country. And you know, you identify as an American.
That's right.
And the generation that grew up, World War II generation, the Great Generation, I can tell you all my uncles and aunts all identified as being American, not as being Italian. There was a bit of a resentment there, and I think our generations have been able to bridge some of that gap.
Yeah, my mother and father used to send money to the relatives back there.
Yeah.
It wasn't much, but, you know, what little it was, it meant an awful lot back there.
Right.
So when they came to Capitola, did they live in the fishing village down by the wharf, or did they
lived there for a while, yes.
Okay, so then in 1920 that was torn down.
That's right. Then they moved up. They bought this old house that was up above. On Prospect, and then they remodeled that, I guess.
It was interesting that there was a Capitola fish market in that little village.
Well, there was a fish market in the village. I don't know what it was called at that time.
It was called the Capitola Fish
was
Market.
It?
Yeah.
Well,
We're talking right at the base of the wharf where the Venetian court is.
Where the Venetian
now.
court used to be.
And there's pictures of the old buildings and the old fish market.
That's right.
And that's where they originally lived. That's where my great-grandfather lived for a while.
Right.
And there was Herman Goering and his brothers.
I remember that name, Goering.
And I think he had 2 or 3 brothers, and they ran the fish market. But they left when it was demolished. They all went away. I think he went to Watsonville and had a fish market there. So, but your parents picked up the name,
and they built that. Earl McCombs.
Yes,
Earl
McCombs. Yes.
He built the building. It's 2 stories there, and he built that building. And the fish market was a Capitola Fish Market was there.
And he used it, but they picked up that
they
name.
Picked up
I thought
the
that
name.
was interesting that they sort of kept that old fish market going. And they had that. They built that new building in what, 27, 26?
26, I guess it is. Yeah, 26. It's still there. It's still a nice building.
It is. Yeah.
Still nice, 4 nice apartments upstairs, and then stores down
And it
below.
hasn't been changed too much.
No, it hasn't. No, it was really a nice building
Has
at
the
the time.
outdoor plumbing on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
So
Could you describe that? I mean, did you just sell fish, or did you have bread? I mean,
No, we used to buy olive oil out of North Beach by the barrel.
Yeah.
And we used to buy, and I used to bottle it there in the store, and then we used to buy what do you call hardtacks?
Galata,
Galatas.
which was an Italian bread, hard bread. It's
We-
about this big
We
around.
used to buy those in North Beach.
Yeah.
By the
Cuneo Bakery.
Yeah, Cuneo Bakery, and I used to sell those. Used to sell olive oil, hardtack,
Salami.
and salami, and then my dad used to make.
Fagasa.
Now he used to make salamis out
Oh.
of dolphins. In those days, dolphins.
Now let's talk about this. It was called Drafine.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
You
They
know,
used to occasionally get dolphin in the net. Now, if you get a dolphin in the net, it kills them.
yeah.
Okay? Now you're required to just dump the dolphin overboard. The Italians used to take the dolphin and dry them into...
like a salami.
Yeah,
Like a salami.
and it tasted like pork.
Yeah, you slice it thin, and it was
So
just
and
like.
people would come to the store
And
and
You
buy
get this, it was a
this-
specialty. I grew up eating dolphin as a young boy,
I did.
and now it's pretty stunning to me
Yeah.
that's what I was eating, because we called it Drafine, and I had no idea what it was.
That's
It was like a jerky.
Yeah. Yeah, it was very tender. It was very good.
Did you ever sell fish did you fish at all in SoCal Creek?
Oh yeah, yeah. I used to fish there all the time for steelhead.
Uh-huh.
Alan and I and a few
Oh,
others.
so
used
you
to-
knew Alan.
Oh yeah, very well.
What was he like?
Oh, he was a wonderful person. Alan and I used to fish all the time in the river when I was a little kid. I used to
They
hang.
say that he liked to help kids learn how to fish.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, Alan and I used to fish, I guess, together more than anybody else.
Really?
Alan who?
Al Lant.
Alan.
Al Lant was character Capitola, dear friend of Harry Hoover's,
Oh yeah.
and owned the big house on
Right
the
on
bluff overlooking the
Hall of Capitola.
all of Capitola, but right by the
Railroad track
right by
there.
the tracks.
Yeah, right by the river.
The trestle, yeah.
And he was quite a horseman too.
Yeah, that's right.
But he developed some kind of fly fishing.
He used to.
He used to tie his own flies.
Yeah, that was his hobby. He used to fix all his stuff for me.
And he was a baseball player.
He was a baseball player. No, he was very nice. His wife was a lovely woman, a wonderful woman. She passed away, and then I guess he remarried later in life.
Molly
Yeah,
had,
yeah.
But he used to also, in addition, steelhead, because I tell people SoCal Creek was a great trout creek.
Oh, it was wonderful. It was a good steelhead. You could see the steelhead coming up from the beach there, from the ocean, and there was a lot of action in steelhead and fishing.
And trout fishing
Oh,
upstream.
we were all the way,
run out the door of the store
and fish anytime you wanted there, yeah.
fish. You
Yeah.
could see him from the ridge.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Oh, God. And you could fish clear up to where the shadow brook is now, way above it. We used to call it the Rispin Bridge.
Yeah.
Oh.
And we used to
Bridge.
fish even above that, all
By
the way up to SoCal Creek.
Paula
And
Violet
in
Farm.
fact, at grammar school, when I was in the 5th and 6th grade grammar school, I was always playing hockey. Not hockey,
Okay.
hooky.
Yeah, yeah.
Hooky.
And
You
noon,
called it hockey. You told
at
your dad
noon-
I'm playing hockey, but it was really
at noon I used to go down to the creek down there and snag a couple of steelhead.
Well, the hole behind SoCal Creek is one of the great steelhead holes.
That's right.
Didn't they close school on the first day of the fishing season? I read that they
Used to close Santa Cruz High,
They closed
and maybe all of them.
SoCal Elementary.
Really?
Maybe
All
they
the
did,
kids
yeah.
They would
Because
go-
right behind
Yeah.
the school, the northeast
yeah.
corner of the school, was one of the most beautiful fishing
Fishing
holes.
hole.
It's still there, very deep.
Oh, yeah.
And so you'd be in school
Yeah.
when the
They
season
were-
run, and you could go out and you'd see the hole would be literally, you could look like you could walk across the water on the backs of the steelhead.
Yeah.
They'd be that
It's kind of
thick.
hard to stay in school.
That's
right. I played a lot of hockey too. She and I have a friend named Ed Morrison, used to play a lot of hockey too. And he'd come back with a steelhead for the teacher and they'd forgive him for
That's right. That's what
The test that he missed,
There was more than one test, Carolyn, but we'll leave it at that.
So how does one go about catching? Do you use bacon, cheese, bait, flies, or a gaff?
No, Al usually tie rope.
We always used to get a stick off a tree, a limb, and we always had a little triple hook in our pocket. We used to tie that on the end and snag them.
So you didn't use any bait at all?
No.
Well, they did. Al also used to fish with roe that he would tie.
Roe, that's right, yeah.
So did you sell the fish in the market?
No, you couldn't. You couldn't.
Steelhead, you never been
You
a
never,
commercial
you
fish.
never,
Oh,
it was
okay, so
never,
you could-
no.
So nothing that you
All you could do is eat them,
them.
and they were good to eat.
Oh, good to eat. Well, during the Depression, I know that the fish really helped the local population.
Oh, yeah, that was good.
So
But you know, the towns then and the people then were so different than what they are today.
How are they
That-
different?
Well, like when you were in business, you'd sell a car, you'd shake hands with a customer, and that was your contract. I mean, their word was good.
yeah.
I mean, how do you do things today? I mean, the paperwork is so thick and everybody questions you. It's, you know, I don't know. I go up to my son's place up in Scotts Valley. Must see a place, you got to go see.
Oh,
that.
I know. His son is Bruce Canepa, who has the
Yeah.
big new car place up in Scotts Valley,
and-
talking about turning it into a museum.
But people used to, like, the only reason that I got along and being so successful in this country with people in Santa Cruz is everybody was helping me. You know, the banks were good
Sure.
to you. I remember Ben Pino, when the flood hit me, I owed the bank $87,000 at that time. You know, and I didn't have any money, and I went to Ben Pino. He was standing in the middle of the floor, and he had a little secretary with him. I said, Ben, can I talk to you in the office? He said, what do you want, Angelo? You need some more money? I said, no, I want to tell you about where I am. So he looked at me, he said, you need some more money? I'll give you some more money. I said, no, I owe you $87,000. I can't pay you back now. Don't worry about it. Go to work. He says, go to work. He said, you can pay me back. Go to work. That's the way they used to do it in those days. But how did they do it today?
No, well, you brought up the Depression, and I've heard, you know, one of we sort of pictured the Depression through images of the East Coast and images of the big cities, but in Santa Cruz and Capitola, the Depression didn't seem to hit quite as hard. What was your memory of the Depression?
Well, it hit, but of course I don't.
Well, you know, I have something that I have a little theory about
Yeah.
Capitola. And
Okay, yeah, let me hear
The
it.
Hawaiian Garden. Now,
Oh.
I've heard that
Hawaiian
Hawaiian Garden's this big dance club
Yeah.
right in the middle of Capitola.
Yeah,
and
beautiful.
it advertised, you know how they
And-
sometimes exaggerate it, but
Yeah.
it said, 9,000 people come every weekend.
Yeah.
I think that was keeping Capitola alive. I
Yeah,
think there
Frank
were,
Blake owned it.
Frank Blake, right. And so Frank Blake, now he owned
Oh,
property, he owned a huge,
off
where
of
J
off
Street
of
Park is.
41st, yeah, off
Right.
of 41st there, where
And that reminds me of a story I heard about you that I
Yeah.
think, is it Schaefer? Keith Schaefer?
Keith Schaefer.
Keith Schaefer told me, and he had Schaefer's Tropical Gardens.
That's
there on
right.
41st.
Yeah, on 41st.
And so he said there was a plane crash out there
Yeah.
one time, and everybody thought it was you. Everybody.
That's right.
They thought you were supposed to deliver a plane.
To Los Angeles.
Yes, but at the last minute you didn't fly it. Somebody else did, and the plane crashed.
That's right. It was an Army surplus plane, and they wanted me to deliver it. The owner wanted me to take it to Los Angeles with them, and I said, no, I won't fly one of those. And cadets, they were the worst training plane that there was, you know. And I said, the way you maintain it, it's a disgrace. I said, I won't go in that. So the rumor got that I was going to fly it down. And then it took off from Capitola Airport and circled and crashed on Frank's Blake property there and burned. Both of them were killed. The pilot and the passenger were killed.
Yeah.
And Perigo, who owned the ambulance company at that time, he drives into the garage and he tells Al Panucci, he says, partner was just killed out in an airplane crash, and I was in the back, and he said, Al said, no, Angelo's here. He said, no, he's just crashed in an airplane out in Capitola. And so then I went out with the ambulance with Parago because I come out. I said, here I am, Lyndall. And he said, oh my gosh, good. He said, I got to go out to Capitola. I said, let me go out with you. So I went out with him. And
evidently it scared quite a few people. Really were
oh,
afraid
yeah.
for you.
So they thought you died.
They thought I was gone.
Rumors of your demise were greatly exaggerated.
Well, it's funny that Keith Schaefer remembered that. Cause
That's
he
right.
me a
No,
map
I
and
heard
said, oh,
that
that's
story.
where
Yeah.
everybody thought Angelo was flying his
I
plane.
thought I was all over with it.
Yeah.
Now, did you sail at all in Capitola during that?
I used to sail all the time. I sailed out of here for years. And I had a lot of sailboats. I became a Jensen Marine cow boat dealer here in Santa Cruz. And I used to lease boats. Dr. McCormick, George McCormick, I leased him when he first come here, he couldn't afford a boat, so I leased him a boat. He rigged me on a jet at the yacht club. And he says, that Cal 28, I leased it to him for 8 years. He says, you can't believe what I paid for that boat, an 8-year lease.
Well, did you learn up sailing, growing up sailing in Capitola?
When we were little kids, yeah. And that's the only way you could do it. But Dad used to make the sail for us, and we used to get a little rowboat, a little dinghy, and go out on the sail. Yeah.
Because when I was in high school, your son Jeff was the world Hobie Cat champion.
That's right. He was very active. We went all over the world with him. He was very good.
And I used to see him, and he was absolutely fearless when he sailed.
That's right.
I've never seen anyone who was so fearless out on the water with those things.
Yeah, well, my Geoffrey and my brother Elo and I, we used to race them always out here in Hobie Cats, and I wasn't not too much of a Hobie Cat sailor because I enjoyed sailing a conventional boat.
Single hull, yeah.
And the last boat that I had was a 40-foot cow boat, and I raced it in St. Francis Yacht Club, and I qualified for the Transpac up there.
Right.
And then I didn't go on it. I was, and then I didn't go on it. And then I sold the boat to a wine distributor out of Australia, and the boat's in New Zealand, still in New Zealand.
Wow.
He sailed it over there. Now, I enjoyed sailing, but then I got too old, and I went into I call it a stink pot. I helped design this boat here. And I tried to get it built in the States, and said, no, it's too expensive, and you can't, there's no market, because they have to build 6 at a time or something like that. So then I took the wife to Hong Kong. She wanted to go to Hong Kong, and she's a shopper. And I left there for a day and flew to Taiwan and met John's son, the president of the company, that he owned this company at that time. And I talked him into it. He wouldn't build it. And he said, I said, there's a good market for it, John. You got to look at it, because there's a market for this boat in the United States. And he said, no, it's too expensive and this and that. 28 days later, he called me up to Taiwan, come into San Francisco, and says, Angelo, I want to build that boat of yours. And he says, I want to put it on the market. And I says, okay. So I signed the release on it and gave him a check, and they call them offshores now. They're very popular. They're a very good boat.
So this came from Hong Kong?
From Taiwan.
Taiwan.
I helped,
Beautiful.
I helped design it, design the inside and all.
Is this all teak?
It's all teak. Everything is teak. Teak decks, teak inside. You can't get teak anymore.
And I saw you went salmon fishing opening day and knocked them dead.
We went out salmon fishing the opening day. There was 5 of us going, 4 others than myself. And the weather was so bad that I called it off Friday night. And then Saturday morning I come down the boat, which I usually do, and I come down here, and it was about 8 o'clock, and I said, oh, we could go out there for a couple hours. It isn't that bad. So I called up 2 friends of mine, and I didn't want to hang up the phone. They were here, and we went out, and that's the day we got some fish. And then the following Thursday we went out. There was 4 of us on board, and we got 8 nice fish.
Beautiful.
And then the other day we went out, And Judge Johns came with us. Bob Johns, he goes fishing with us every so often. And we got 5 nice fish. So we've been out 3 times. We've done well.
Well, I came back to town and saw your picture in the paper with the fish, and I thought, full circle again, back to fishing for you.
Yeah. Yeah, my son, Bruce, calls me up. He says, Dad, you did it again. I said, what do you mean, Bruce? He says, I was in the back page, back of the front page. He says, mine wasn't colored. You were in the front page, and it was colored. Ribbon me.
I have a question about Capitola. It's well known for a couple large events that happened there. Were you involved with the politics of Capitola, the Begonia Festival, the elephant train, any of that kind of stuff? How did Capitola...
No, not really. I was...
You were probably gone.
Those are all post-war events.
Yeah, those were all... I was gone at that time,
so
yeah.
you moved away from Capitola.
That's right, yeah. When I got married, we lived in Capitola for about a year, and then
you got married what year?
Oh gosh, what did I get married? 40. When I was.
Shortly after the war.
Yeah. It was in. Oh, that's a good question. I'm glad you asked, and not my wife.
Well,
Not my wife.
his wife's last name is Dunn, where there's no relation. Her
Dunn.
maiden name was Dunn. Out
From
of Oakland, right?
That's right.
Oakland,
Dunn Sheet Metals.
Moose Hill, yeah.
Yeah, no, and she we'll be married in September, 57 years.
57 years.
So
You do the
So
math.
you were married about 1948. Something like
40, 49, I think.
40,
Yeah.
49.
After I got in the service.
How did you meet?
Oh God, that's a good question. I met her at the at Coconut Grove. I
Coconut
guess.
Grove,
Yeah.
downtown, where they used to have the dances.
I used to go dance quite a bit. I enjoyed dancing. I used to go there. And wait a minute. No, I met her in the evening.
That was another one.
No, I think she used to drive over from Oakland. She had some problem with the car. And at night, when I'd work all day, I'd drive a tow car at night for emergency. And I picked her up there. I don't know how I met her. She remembers,
I'm sure.
knowing Lucille.
Yes, and
But
she'll
she's
remember that you
she-
didn't remember, Angelo.
She's been a wonderful woman, too. She's been a lot of help to me. She's been a wonderful woman.
So you got married about 49 and you lived in Capitola for a year or so?
About a year and a half.
So you left about 1950.
Yeah, and then we moved into a little apartment over here near the depot there. That little motel is there. We moved in there
Casa,
Yeah.
what is it?
we moved in there for a while,
Just
And then-
across the street.
And then-
Blanco.
Yes.
and then I built a home up at San Juan Avenue, and we lived there for some time, and then I built this home. It's going to be it's 44 years in Pastampo.
Oh,
I've
okay.
lived there ever since.
So you haven't kept up with Capitola so much in recent
No,
years.
no. I've been
But you
concentrating on.
remember, let's see, the 40s. I'm trying to think of what it was
Yeah.
like. It was not much happened in Capitola, except there were sewage problems. And
Oh yeah, no, they run into a lot of problems. But we used to have a lot of volunteers in those days, and people.
Oh, yeah.
And later on, there's
Harry
no.
Hooper.
Yeah, Harry Hooper and all, and then volunteers. It's just you faded out. You don't get volunteers
Well,
to
there's a
do.
story that I almost forgot. In 1933, when Hawaiian Gardens burned,
Yeah,
your building, your parents' building,
Yeah.
was the only one
that was left.
that didn't burn.
That's
and
right.
the story was that the Canepa brothers grabbed the hose away from the firemen because they were kind of inept. I mean, it was
Yeah.
they weren't able to pump the water because Capitola didn't have enough fire equipment. They weren't able to pump the water
Yeah.
to save any of the buildings, so they grabbed the hose because they knew what they were doing, and were able to save your building.
Yeah, well, but most of the buildings were all gone. Were all on fire at that time, and the one that was next to us was 2/3 burning, and it was started to burn into some of ours, and that's
And
when
you
my
were determined to save it.
Save it. That's right.
So
Yeah.
you were living in your house. How did you remember how they heard about the fire, or they just happened to look out the
No,
window?
boy, I don't remember that.
You were a teenager
But
then.
yeah, and I was.
Your older brothers were in their 20s.
Yeah, and I was in the volunteer fire department too at that time
So
too.
you probably raced
Yeah.
down there.
Oh yeah, we used to be just about. I used to go to just about every fire there was on volunteer. 'Cause that's the only way the fire department would get out there
But
through
Capitola
volunteer.
was that when that block in Capitola was in sad shape because
Oh yeah,
it didn't have any income, and Harry Hooper wanted to rebuild Otterway,
that's right.
and he was determined to get.
Harry was very good. He was a good man for
People,
Capitola.
And did they rebuild right away?
They did, and
Didn't
they
they?
got Earl McCombs to do it.
Errol McCombs built our place for us.
That's why everything looks like kind of like stucco box.
Yeah.
The general design, but they wanted to get the Hawaiian Gardens up in like 16 weeks or something to rebuild this building because that was the.
I remember the wine gardens. I used to go in there and sell newspapers on Saturday night.
Well, that was another place they did a lot of drinking, right?
A lot of drinking, and you'd go
Even
in.
during Prohibition.
I remember going in there with on Saturday night. We used to always have a Sunday paper, and they'd never never take the paper because they had a date. Who wants to?
Wants to carry paper around.
So they always give you a dime and tell you to get out of the way.
So what was it like inside the Hawaiian Gardens?
Oh, it was beautiful. It was.
There were these beautiful lamps made by John Otar the lamp maker.
You remember him? Yeah.
Did you?
Yeah.
What was he like?
I don't remember now, but I remember the name.
The name Otar the lamp maker.
And what was it like inside? Were there bars?
Yeah.
One big bar?
No, there was one big bar that I remember. I don't know if there's a bar.
Okay.
And
They
he
had a
had.
lot of foliage hanging from the ceiling.
It looked like a fun place.
It was.
And where people come from all over?
They come from all over. It was very popular at that time. Very, very popular. Yeah.
Was it live music or?
Yeah.
Did you
They-
go into the orchestra?
They had the orchestras. They had no. It was live music. I'm just trying to think of some of the names.
They had big bands during the...
Stanford Ambassadors played there.
It was I want to say a name like Recitar, but it wasn't Recitar. It was an Italian name. He had a very good popular band.
Well, Johnny Righetti played there with Dave Ferrari and his group.
Yeah.
And then when it burned, they finally... Oh, you might remember the sequence. Now they built a new dance hall, but it didn't do very well. It was called the Big
Dream Inn? No, was it the Dream
Big
Inn?
Top Ballroom. And it didn't do well.
No.
So they eventually jacked it up and moved it over
Oh boy.
where the old hotel was,
Yeah.
and it became the Capitola Ballroom. Did you go there?
Yeah.
The Capitola Ballroom.
Yeah.
And it became the Seba nightclub.
That's it. Yeah.
So the Seba wasn't located where the Gardens was.
No,
No,
Seba's
that-
over by Esplanade Park.
Got it.
Big, and there was a House of Wax there,
Yeah.
and that was another big dance spot.
Remember the old Capitola Hotel? Ted Woodhouse? Teddy Woodhouse?
Teddy Woodhouse. Now, what was he like?
Yeah, he was a wonderful person.
Everybody said he was great.
He was great. I used to work for him and
really?
delivered him newspapers up at his house all the time. He lived up on Depot Hill up in there.
It's at the end of Cliff Avenue.
That's right.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Well, it must have been idyllic growing up in Capitola in the 1920s and
The people
30s.
were wonderful. That's what I say. It was ideal. It was a beautiful town. And I still love it today, I wish I'd never sold my home today, because I still love Capitola.
What was the wharf like? Was it busy then?
It was busy. Capitola Wharf was always busy. A lot of fishing, people fishing off the wharf,
Yes.
a lot of that, because they used to catch a lot of fish off there. Used to catch a lot of halibut, and it was good.
I want to bring up a more recent event. Last year you had a big birthday party at the yacht club. Talk a little bit about that. How did that come about and who showed up? And
That was my youngest son, Geoffrey's responsibility. He's always on those kind of things.
we put together a family reunion. And a lot of friends.
It turned out it was about 150 there. It turned out very nice. It was a surprise to me, and I keep telling I don't want to promote my old age. I don't want to hear about me getting older all the time, but I guess that's history today.